Okay, so now we're in Genesis chapter 26, and it says, "There was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of Philistines, in Gerar. Then the Lord appeared to him and said, 'Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land of which I will tell you. Dwell in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your descendants I gave all these lands, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father.'" So this is just, a good picture that we live in a broken world, but our God is not broken, right? And He didn't break it. God created everything good. He didn't create famine, but because of sin, we live in a broken world where there's death and there's famine, there's all these things. So right now we don't have a perfect good world, and God will create a new earth and it will be good. But we get God to help us navigate this broken world. Isn't that good? Of course, bad things happen to good people. And if you read the book of Acts and see how the disciples were treated, we can expect persecution, and we can, expect to just have, bad things happen to us. But isn't it good to know that God will navigate your life for you if you let Him? And He'll bless you through it, and He'll accomplish what He wants to accomplish. This isn't our home. We're not supposed to make this our home, and this isn't a place to just have fun all the time. That's for the next life. But here we get God, His blessing, and that accomplishes a purpose, and we get to have God helping us navigate this broken world. Isn't that good? I know I got job offers and I didn't feel like I should take them, and then those companies shut down or they had huge layoffs, and it's just good to have God as your guide through this broken world. Now it says this in verse 5 is an interesting verse in chapter 26. He says, "Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws." And so we know that God's covenant with Abraham was a one-sided covenant. It wasn't dependent on Abraham's actions, it was dependent on God's actions. Very similar to us and our covenant with Christ, that we get to go to heaven because of His actions, not ours. But the interesting thing is that faith produces works, right? Faith without works is dead. If your faith, what you believe, is different than your actions, then that's not real faith. Your belief is different. If you really believe in Jesus, if you trust Him, you're going to obey Him, aren't you? And isn't it awesome how God honored Him? This is very similar to Jesus and what He talked about in Matthew 25. And He might have mentioned it in another gospel also, but he talked about separating the sheep and the goats, and He says that the righteous are the ones who fed Him. He was hungry and they fed Him. He was in prison and they visited Him. And then he looked to the people, the goats, the people that weren't going to heaven, and He talked about their actions, right? They didn't feed Him. They didn't give Him something to drink. And so what we need to realize is that God is awesome. God does the things for us. He fights our wars. He fights our battles. Our part is to have faith, but faith produces works, and God will mention those works. Isn't that great? That God will honor you when your life is over and you stand before God, and your faith, your real faith in Jesus, is going to produce obedience. God will honor that obedience, and He will talk about it to other people. And that's beautiful, isn't it? Now, you're not saved by works. You're saved by God's grace and by faith. But still, our loving God and our caring God is going to talk and brag about you, and brag about the good things that your faith in Him produced. Even though it's Him, right? It's His promises. He's the one that works in us. It's, just like John 15, you're a branch. He's the vine, and He flows through you and produces the fruit of the Spirit. But God, even though He produces the good things in our lives, He wants to honor you, and I believe He'll be talking and bragging about you in the new earth forever and ever. So just keep believing, and know that your belief, your faith produces works, and God will honor you. And the cool thing is, of course, we'll lay our crowns down at His feet, and we'll just tell Jesus it was all you, and He will still honor the actions that we did by faith.